through the window, I watched the sun go down, and I was thinking of making a run for it, but I go, okay, if I know I'm going to die, I'll make a run for it. I'd rather be shot, trying to escape than, getting on my knees and being shot in the head, in the back of the head. So I go, okay, then I'll try to make a run for it. But there's nowhere to go. I'm in the middle of the desert.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to the Creative Drive. Thanks for driving out, guys. Let's get started right away. So, Ryan, you are the founder of Carrara Media.
Yeah.
And Sam, you just recently published these 3 titles from Carrara Media.
Actually wrote the titles. He published them.
Correct. Them, right. You wrote all 3 books.
Correct.
And Ryan, you've written a number of books, but let's start with Carrara Media. What is it, and why'd you start it?
Yeah, it's a publishing company. I started in 2019 when I was still a full-time reporter and automotive journalist. I wanted to be able to put out my own work that was independent, and that was completely up to me. And at the time, the idea was just to do ebooks, because I thought, well, that will be easy. It won't require too much overhead, and I can get stories out into the world that I want, and maybe make a little bit of revenue. But immediately, everyone started asking for physical copies. So I realized, okay, this is going to take more time, deeper investment. Went through a couple of different career changes, and this was still there for me. So really the last 18 months, 2 years, it's been full bore. Like, okay, let's try and make this a real, fully built out automotive publishing company. And projects like Sam have found their way to me, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going from digital to physical books in 2025, when everything is going digital, why physical books?
I think that's definitely the perception, is print is dying and no one reads anymore. If you really take one glance into the numbers of what the industry is seeing, it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, people want to hold things in their hands. They want to sit down and spend time with the story. And I think as short form entertainment becomes more and more popular, they're looking for something to really sink their teeth into. Mm-hmm. And I don't want that perception to become reality. I think if we continue to invest in really well told long form stories, there's an audience for it. Bookstores are doing well. Amazon is selling plenty of books. There's no shortage there. And I think the publishing industry does a really good job of making itself seem really opaque and mysterious and difficult to break into. And it's been a really long journey to learn how to navigate all that, but it can be done. And that's also part of what I wanted to prove with this is, there's so many talented automotive writers. And I would ask people for years, how come you haven't done a book yet? And they would say the same thing every time, which was, I've talked to agents, but they say automotive is too niche and there's not a market for it. I just refuse to believe that. I just think there's a big enough automotive audience with varied enough tastes that are looking for something different and looking for something unique. And I think we can reach them with really strong stories and with creative marketing and creative ways to find people. And I think publishers, traditional book publishers, just aren't familiar with automotive. And so it seems small to them. It seems really difficult to reach these people. That's not a problem for us. We know where to find this audience, and we know how to reach them. So all that, if publishers are telling people that just tells me that they're not interested in competing for this audience. But I'm very comfortable competing for this audience.
Sam, how did you meet Ryan?
I don't know. How
JCCS.
did we meet? Oh, probably Japanese classic car show.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we ran into each other, and then we were just going to have lunch,
right? Not
talk about any books or anything. I wasn't even working on a book at that time. And I told him, hey, my other publishers, they're kind of, not doing the job for me. Boy, I would really love to publish second editions of my first 2 books, the Prototype and the Red Mist. was my second book, and my publisher kind of got into this lawsuit with one of his. I don't know if it's a lawsuit, but he got into a little bit of a problem, I guess, with one of his writers, and he couldn't really devote the time to market it and to do a good job getting it out there, even though he printed it. And at that time, I go, if I could find another publisher for this, will it be okay? And he was okay with that idea. And then I just kind of brought that up to Ryan, and Ryan goes, I'm really interested in doing these re-releasing these first two books. And I go, you're kidding? That'd be awesome. But and then I just said, okay, so. I didn't have hardcover version of the prototype. I go, do you mind if they're hardcover? And he goes, no, we can do that. And I go, oh, okay. So we agreed to do that. And then I started thinking about it a little bit. And I go, it's kind of unfair to Ryan and Carrara Media to just, put out books that have already been published. So I told him, listen, if I could get a book done, a third book done in like 8 months, usually it takes me a year. What do you think? Because then we're offering something new too, and that'll entice the whole package, and we'll make it a trilogy, because they are kind of a trilogy. And he goes, if you could do it, yeah, let's do it. And yeah, it was rough, it was tough, but I got it done. And this is the Keys to the Empire is the third book, which I'm really happy how it turned out. So, yeah.
I think what gave me confidence that was possible is you said, well, you already had a structure for it.
Yeah, I did. There's a little backstory to the story on this, but, which, unless you want to hear it, I won't get into it.
No, we want to hear everything.
Okay. Well, I had a really, really good friend who asked me, he was kind of connected in Hollywood a little bit, and he asked me to write a script for him.
Like Mike Chin you're talking about.
Yeah, Mike Chin. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. And I wrote the script for him, and it was read by a few directors. They wanted to produce a movie. They're looking for funding, but as everything in Hollywood, it's hard to get the fund. To make it to the finish line is a big deal, right? And it stalled and everything. And I just said, I don't know about this, And then all of a sudden, my friend Mike, he passed away.
Yeah.
He's younger than me. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, opened my eyes and go, whoa, you really never know in life. And so what I did was I let the directors know, hey, I'm pulling the script, because I still had rights to it. I go, I'm not interested in making this a movie. And what I did was I took a lot of elements of that script and put it into Keys to the Empire, because I thought it was a pretty strong story. It was good enough for, 2 or 3 directors to kind of try to get funding for it, because they really liked the script so much. So luckily, I had that to, use as my foundation, and that's probably why I was able to get it done in 8 months instead of, the usual year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the backstory to Keys to the Empire. It's dedicated to Mike, my friend.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's a wonder, like reading. Like I've read 1 and 2 already.
Well, you said you read 3,
and I read 3 too recently.
After
I got the first copy at
the
JCCS.
copy, yeah.
But these are like, I told you the first time I read Prototype, it's like, this should be a Netflix series or like a movie or a miniseries. That.
No, I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And it's like, it should be, don't you think, Ryan? It's like, this is like perfectly, like.
No, it could be. Yeah.
Like structured for like a series.
Yeah, they feel very cinematic to me. I think the characters are great, but it's the action that is like, it's really fun.
Right.
And the automotive component is great. There's a lot of candy for car guys and gals.
Right.
And yeah, to me, it's really easy to get lost in a particular scene or an action sequence. And so yeah, I'm totally visualizing when I'm reading this.
Yeah, my agent, the first agent I had who sold the prototype for me, and told me, the way he was selling it was Jason Bourne meets Top Gear.
Yeah,
and that's how he was selling it. And Racer is this platform today we're on podcast. So hopefully there's a lot of race enthusiasts listening. But red mist, the title comes from a racing term for me, because red mist is that mist of red that the racers say they swear they see when they're so motivated to win that they'll put their own, life on the line. I mean, so, people used to ask other racers, hey, you were driving pretty crazy. Did you get the red mist going? They go, yeah, I had the red mist big time. Right. So I go, hey, I could use this as a pretty cool title and theme to this second book. And I think it works pretty well. So
yeah. No, it does. And it's a trilogy.
It is a trilogy,
Right.
but all three have different protagonists, so you don't have to read one to enjoy the other. You can enjoy them on your own.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I wanted to
Right.
to write it. You know, they're not really continuations of the story, even though they do continue in the same timeline. But it's like the MCU, right? The Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They all happen in the same universe.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll see different characters from the other books appear. So yeah.
Yeah. Because like the Prototype can totally be a prequel to the Red Mist.
Well, it is because it's book one,
Right.
Right.
But
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have to go in order. It's like,
exactly. You could
right?
you could do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your background is in automotive journalism,
Of course, yeah.
obviously.
22 years at Road and Track, so
Yeah.
international editor. was my last
But you've
one.
always loved like spy and mystery and action.
Yeah, no, and reading.
Yeah.
I read a lot. I read a lot of books. I was a big thriller, like James Patterson. We talked about Lee Childs. I was a David Baldacci. I mean, those guys. I read a lot. And then of course, when I was a kid, all the Ian Fleming, the James Bond novels. So yeah, I read a lot of books. So and I've always wanted to write a book, but never really got the motivation until, oh gosh, right about when I was leaving Road and Track. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And a little bit of Japanese manga action visualization.
I'm sure that has an influence on it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you see that?
I see it.
Oh,
Yeah,
you do?
yeah,
Okay,
because it's
yeah.
very visual, right? So you can really imagine like what's going on. The way you'd like depict scenes is very manga-like. I think, like reading it, I noticed
okay.
that. Yeah,
Well, that's good. I like painting a picture, and everyone. That's what
right.
I'm supposed to do, right? Yeah.
Right. Hey, thanks for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, whichever platform you're on, and leave some comments. We actually read every one of them, and it's actually great for the algo. All right, back to the show. So talk to us about some of the cars that appear in the books. I mean, if you're a car enthusiast, I'm reading through the pages.
Well, here's the thing, Taro. I mean, if like some of the people who used to read me at Road and Track says, "Hey, Sam Mitani came up with a book," and there wasn't cars that they liked or the ones I covered, and I think they would have been disappointed. So you'll see a lot of niche classic Japanese cars in there. You'll see Zs, you'll see GTRs.
Yep.
One of the in the very latest one, right? One
GTR.
of the GT R34 is in there, and the mob boss drives a Toyota Century. So you'll see even JDM cars like Toyota Alphard. So yeah, but I mean. Yeah, that was kind of my beat at Road and Track, so I thought I should probably stick with it. That's kind of my identity. And if anyone wanted to, any of my old readers picked up my book, they would probably be expecting some of that. So, and of course, I do have, I've made up companies, which are, based on real companies, but, like Kamita Motors is kind of based on Honda and Toyota, even though Honda and Toyota do exist in this world too. So, it's fun, it's fun making up stuff. So.
And the cars that are being brought out in each book that are being produced by this like mysterious, shadowy car company.
Oh yeah, like Song Motors and Red Mist, right? Yeah. So very shadowy. You got to have that in there.
Oh, for sure. And it's just fun how those cars that are being like produced by these mysterious companies are helping drive the story too. Prototype that's my favorite example of that, where he's like the journalist gets invited to drive this super exclusive hypercar, and. I mean, that's fun watching.
Well,
watching that character go through it too. I mean, first of all, like you must have drawn from your experience, like being at a magazine and getting invited on these press trips and getting exclusive access to cool cars.
For sure. So, and that part's real, right? Like the invitation to the exclusive drives. I mean, that really happened to me. So these stories are based on actual experiences, and not just that. I mean, there was a lot of gray, sneaky stuff going on in the car world back then that, that are known, but, they would have made great novel fodder, I mean, one is recently, I was talking to Ryan about this, is Carlos Ghosn of Nissan, I mean, how these mercenaries, former black ops guys snuck them out of the country.
Right.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm going, wow. I couldn't write a novel like that.
No, if it was fiction, you'd say, "Oh, that's ridiculous."
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Right. The stuff that happens in the car world is stranger than fiction sometimes. And so to actually just all you're really doing with your titles is like following that out to another extreme. But the car world's full of great stories.
No, especially the tuner world too.
Yep.
There's a lot of it in here too.
Oh yeah,
the sketchy stuff that happened.
I mean, what we've known with Motorex, and then I don't know if you've heard of Gembala, which is the Porsche tuner company. The founder. He was executed by a mob in South Africa
by the cartel or
something. I mean, that is that's real.
Yeah.
So I mean, so the things that happen in these books aren't really that far fetched. Is what I'm saying. People go, "Oh, this could never happen." Nah, it has. Some worse has happened.
We just squeezed a lot of it all together. But But
and I made it kind of fun to read, and where you're kind of rooting for the good guys.
Yeah. Speaking of Sam's adventures, Ryan, did you hear? Did Sam ever tell you about his Dakar? Was it Dakar where you
Dakar Rally.
You got held up?
Yeah, Well, I get held up. I got taken in.
Oh,
I don't think you've told me that.
Oh no, yeah. I thought it was curtains for me. I thought it was curtains.
What country?
Mali.
I don't think you can even get into Mali these days.
You probably can't, or you probably die. I mean, no, so it was pretty hairy.
How'd you wiggle out?
I really couldn't. I was at the mercy of this guerrilla guys. These army dudes.
That was when they took everything, right?
They took everything, yeah. But I thought, they didn't really take everything. I gave it to them. We gave it to them.
Well, so this was an OE invited you and.
No.
I thought you were with like a Japanese.
Yeah. Right? I think it was Isuzu back then.
Yeah.
Had a truck. Yeah, you want to cover it? And then I said, I'm gonna actually participate. So I jumped into my good friend Shinji Kazama's team, who was driving the Nissan Patrol, which is called a Safari in Europe. And so we were part of the rally, and I was going to cover it through firsthand. And I always thought wanted to do it, but I mean, and it was 95, so it started from Granada, not Paris. So it was called the Granada Dakar Rally then. But I mean, once we got into this, into the Sahara Desert, we had like 3 deaths right away. One poor guy in a camion, which is those big old trucks, right? Mm-hmm. I ran over a landmine. Guy couldn't get out in time. So, while we're driving, they say, stick to the tire tracks. You start going, you might hit a landmine. So, holy cow, this is nuts. Yeah. So, another poor guy got run over. When you picture, we all slept at night, right? So we pitch a tent, we pitch our own tents, and one guy I think pitched it a little too close to where the trucks came in, and
he just ran over.
Well, yeah, because we come in at 2 or 3 in the morning because we get stuck. The prototype ones, the race cars, those guys finish in like 2-3 hours. Yeah, we take like 10, 11 hours. So some of these guys are tired driving in, and boom. He ran over the poor guy's tent. So another guy, fell on his motorcycle, died.
The founder of Dakar Rally died, I believe, a helicopter crash.
Another guy fell out of a helicopter, a journalist, because his strap broke as he was leaning out. So we had a couple deaths. Yeah, so I thought, I'm going to be another stat here. When they took me in because we were way off. We were like 50 miles off course, and they didn't believe me that we were part of the race. And he took our passports, or took my passport. I was the only one they took in because I could speak French at that time a little bit. And I said, passport's fake. What are you doing? Well, we're going to ship you to our headquarters. I think capital Mali, because we're in nowhere, right? It was just this little ceramic building with no windows but no glass. It's like something out of a movie. One of those. Yeah, and he says, we're going to take you to the headquarters. You'll be tortured and killed. I'll go, holy cow, really? Yeah.
I'm just a journalist.
No, I'm just here for the race, man. Yeah. But actually, the ending was, 3 or 4 hours. I through the window, I watched the sun go down, and, I was thinking of making a run for it, but I go, okay, if I know I'm going to die, I'll make a run for it. I'd rather be shot, trying to escape than, getting on my knees and being shot in the head, in the back of the head. So I go, okay, then I'll try to make a run for it. But there's nowhere to go. I'm in the middle of the desert.
Right.
So, but as I watched the sun go down, he finally asked me, hey, how much money do you have? And I go, I don't have much, but if whatever I have, whatever you find, you can have it. He goes, what else you got it back in there? And I said, we have clothes and our camping equipment. He goes, well, let's see. I go, okay, this is what he wanted. I wish he would have, let me know earlier.
Yeah.
We could have been on our way. I think he just wanted to scare me.
Right.
And yeah, they took everything. And then they said,
Your shoes,
you're on your way.
helmet, everything?
I don't think they took our helmets because I
Okay.
don't think they needed them.
Okay.
Yeah. Shoes, they allowed us stuff, but everything else, everything we were wearing, we
Right.
kept.
Okay.
But, yeah. But the bags
Okay.
of our clothes.
Suitcases or
No suitcases. We just had
backpacks. Bags.
Yeah. They took everything. Yeah.
And then,
I was happy to give it to them
right.
because I thought that was it. I
Yeah.
thought I was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd go, oh, they're going to shoot me. Because, I was 95. That's when the African militia, it was pretty famous. They were killing a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I go, ooh. So, and, after that, they moved it to South America, right? Because it got too dangerous in
Right.
Africa. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're with us, buddy.
yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. So,
You didn't think about using any of your judo moves and pinning them
not
down?
with AK-47s. I got 3 of them on me. No, judo ain't going to help too much then. Yeah.
How many of them were there?
There was 3.
3 with
Yeah.
guns? And
Guns,
is there
yeah.
2
No,
of
the
you
rifles.
guys? 2 of you guys?
No. Just me in their little shack,
Uh-huh.
and no, the 3 Japanese guys, they left in the car.
What do you mean they left in the...
They said one guy watched them. He goes, "You come here," because they couldn't speak. So
okay.
so I'm going, I don't, what's going on? Yeah, no, they just took me in.
It's really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
So I just go, oh, this is not good. Make an example out of me. And
Right.
then, yeah. So no, it was. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the first time I go, am I dead? Is this it? And I was surprisingly calm. I thought I didn't. You learn a lot about yourself when faced with that kind of situation. Yeah, I remained calm. I didn't freak out, and I didn't throw up. I didn't, like people do in the movies.
Yeah.
No, I was just kind of going, okay, let's see where this goes. I mean, there's really nothing I can do, so I'll just gotta try to manage this the best I can.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But Africa's a pretty dangerous place.
So lots of inspiration to take from.
Well, none of that is in the books. Yeah, but I've seen the wrong side of a gun before. So
Yeah. So, Ryan, I know every single person in this book.
yeah, I know. Sean Morse is like the star.
Yeah. You weren't interviewed for this book too.
No,
because
and
I
did
everyone in this
participate.
book too.
Yeah, I do. But I mean, I think we talked about this before, Taro, that about Motorex, and maybe we should do some. I mean, the president of Motorex at the time, Hero, was a good friend of mine, and if he's out there somewhere. I think he wants to be left alone. I don't want to. I don't want to. So I don't really participate.
We've always
in that
talked
stuff.
about like doing a documentary on the GTR or doing a show.
Have.
I have. Yeah, and I've talked to Sam.
I wasn't very interested in doing that. Yeah. I mean, the guy, he's
you can tell the story without Hero being there.
You could.
I was reading this. It's like, man, this is like what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to make a show.
That's why this should be a documentary.
Yeah, I think this would be a great documentary.
Yeah,
Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I've thought about it, but we're trying to bring out new titles and focus on other things. So I think there's lots of opportunity. There's lots of stories that didn't make it into Cult of GTR. So I think there's more opportunity in the future to explore things that happened during that same time period. And there's also more stories that have happened since then because more cars have started to legalize, more cars have started to be imported. All kinds of different tuning companies and importing companies and quote unquote experts have popped up as they typically do with Skyline's GTRs. So there's a lot that could be done still. And it'd be amazing to have a documentary on what really went down all back then. But I think the fun part of researching and writing that book was I've never been like a super JDM guy, but just being in the car world, you hear like these stories floating around. Yeah. It's really hard to pin down what's true or what the exact timeline was or who was really involved, and really separate truth from speculation. And so that was my goal with that, was try to A, figure out what actually happened, and then B, put it all in one place, because before that it was like a story, an article was written in this magazine this many years ago, and then another one came in a different magazine years later.
Right.
So I wanted to put them all in place, put them in a real timeline, and then try to introduce new information that hadn't come out before.
Yeah.
I'd love to know if you learned something from that, because being immersed in that, and if you learned something, then that was the ultimate goal.
Yeah, no, I definitely learned a lot. The details I didn't know a lot about, especially some of the other illegal, things that were going on. I think, like, Rich Chang wrote an article. I think you referenced it. Yeah. Was probably the only one that kind of told the gray history of the GTR. But this, I think you nailed it, man. It's like from the beginning, and like Sean comes out, and it's like it's just awesome. I loved it. I had a great time reading it, and enjoyed it thoroughly. And especially because I just know a lot of the people that you're talking to. Everyone from Mines to Dustin Williams, and even like the GT Channel video that we did with Paul Walker is like referenced in the book too.
So much of that culture is what fueled like the passion and the phenomenon for that car. And so like the best motoring video with the Mines R34, like that single piece of media influenced thousands of people in the US now who now own GTRs, or whether it's an R35 or Skyline or whatever. But time and time again, it was brought up to me as like, oh, that was the single moment I decided I was going to dedicate my life to owning GTR.
Yeah.
And more than like, that's what's so fascinating to me about that car is like the people and the cultural touchstones surrounding it. Before you even bring in Gran Turismo or the Fast and Furious. Yeah. Like, it just touched people in a way that just doesn't exist with other cars. Yeah. Like, people are in love with the car because a 911 is a great car, or whatever Ferrari you fall in love with is a great car. But it's impactful moments and people that make the Skyline special.
Yeah. How do you feel about it? Why do you think the GTR has such a cult following here in the U.S.?
Well, for one, it wasn't available here. Yeah. So
that's key.
The forbidden fruit aspect, I think, is pretty big. And of course, it was a really tasty forbidden fruit. It had a lot of power. It could handle well. And I don't know how many people. I don't know how much this would fit into the equation, but the GTR's history is, it goes far before the R32, right? Yeah. So, and it's when Nissan and Prince kind of came together. And then and the old ones like the Hakosuka, those GTRs, they were very classic. So in Japan they were considered classics, and to all the American people, those were new, right? Yeah. And then of course you have the gray market thing and all the stuff that Ryan covered. That just added to the hype, I think. So so I think a little bit of everything. Yeah, that's what I think.
Were you the first U.S. journalist to drive the?
We were the first. I was the first U.S. journalist to drive the V-Spec with your GT channel. It's got 1 million views on YouTube.
Oh, that's for the R35.
R35. Yeah. Oh, which one?
I thought you were the first one to test maybe the 33 GTR.
Oh no! I think I was the first one to drive all these tuned GTRs. Okay. Yeah, because that was before anyone even knew about really Japanese tuning. That was like in that was a long time ago. I went to Japan, right, and we took a picture by Mount Fuji and everything. The HKS 01, I think. Do you remember that car?
Oh, yeah.
That was a R33, I think. So yeah. So,
I think it was a 32.
Was it a 32? I can't rember. Yeah,
when I went to HKS and they were touring me around some of the factories, they had
Was it R32? Yeah,
it was a 32. They had the back end bumper of a 0R just like leaned up against the wall in one of the factories, and I was like, do you know what you have just sitting on the floor over there? Of course,
they didn't make that many of them, right? And I was
12 or something like that.
So something like that. Yeah, I drove one of the first ones. on
That's
Hakone
unbelievable.
Skyline.
You never
So,
told
yeah.
me that, and that's
Oh, really?
unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. That we had the REM RX-7
RX-7, yeah.
there. We had a few pretty cool cars. We had a Veilside, I think a Supra or something, A80. I can't. Yeah,
Well, Sam, you started.
can't
You
remember.
were probably the first American journalist that started covering any of these
from
JDM.
out of the three books,
Yeah.
out of the three big books,
Yeah,
Motor
yeah,
Trend,
yeah.
Car Trend, yeah.
Right.
So I still have like people who go to me, hey, when I read that piece, it was called Distant Thunder.
Yeah.
Of all the Japanese, they go, that's when my started. My love with Japanese cars started. I
Right.
go, oh, thank you. It goes, and then they remind you, oh, I was like 6 years old. I go, yeah, thanks, man. I was like 30 something by then, but yeah, it's whatever.
And you were tight with Toyoda-san from HKS USA here as well.
Yeah, and Hasegawa-san too.
Yeah, in Japan.
The guy who founded HKS,
Yes,
right?
yeah. HKS Hasegawa-san from H.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
And how often were you going to Japan at that time?
at that time, not as much as my peak. So probably about 3-4 times a year, because I was going like 5 to 7 times a year for like a long time. That's a lot of trips. So
Mhm.
yeah. So
That's in the heyday too. That's cool.
yeah, that was in the heyday. That's
I mean, I don't know how aware of it you are, but so many people now pine for those days, like the late '80s, early '90s.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people tell me that, hey, Sam, because I got out of road and track and started my own business in, I think, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And they told me, hey, you got out at the right time. It ain't the same. Those were the days. And I go, yeah, those were the days, man. So they go, it ain't like that anymore. So, which is too bad. But, yeah, I mean, things evolve, right? And, no one reads really paper magazines anymore. So
Everything's on social media now.
yeah,
A lot of it is on social media. But, people
But books are
still
different,
reading
I think.
Yeah.
I think books are different.
Yeah.
But, and Taro, I don't know if you have connections at Amazon or Netflix. You got two great foundations for a series right here,
Yeah.
Prototype Trilogy and Call of GTR.
Actually have a meeting with Amazon
Oh, there you go.
this week.
Well, there you go. You could pitch them for us. You could be our pitch man.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy lived through all of this, right? So
Yeah, that's why I don't want to really, comment on too much of this stuff, because some of them are still my friends, a lot of them, and
Yeah.
I just, it's, enjoy, but I'll just kind of take a back seat. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
well, I learned when reading your book,
Ryan's book, right?
Ryan's
Yeah,
book,
yeah.
and you mentioned you write, I was meeting Daisuke Mizuguchi, president of HKS, and I was like, man, that name sounds really familiar, and it came to me. So Daisuke used to be a mechanic here in the U.S. Did he tell you that?
Not in the U.S. No.
Yeah. So maybe he wasn't stationed here, but I met him here in the U.S. when like Taniguchi and them would come from the HKS. Like,
I think I met him
drift
too.
team would come to, and Taniguchi would like go and do like these exhibitions or do these one-offs.
He was a HKS drift driver.
Right, and he would do like Formula Drift for an event or so. Like Daisuke was the one that came with him and like worked on his car. So that's where I know Daisuke from. And when I read, I didn't even know that he became president. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
He was project lead on some pretty special projects. Like when you see videos of people getting the full tour at HKS and seeing like all the incredible one-off vehicles that they've built, he was typically the project lead on those. So he's I mean, who could be a better like representative for a company now, like in the boardroom, and rather than like the person who physically built
right
a lot of those classic cars.
My SEMA build, I think it was 20, we're going to start really dating ourselves, Sam, 2010, 2012 or something like that.
Why are you looking at me? He's talking to me about why is he mentioning me? What is this we stuff, man?
It's we, man.
No, man. It's you.
My SEMA 350Z build. You remember that? The GT Channel 350Z?
I think
it
so,
was in
yeah.
like Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
So Daisuke built the supercharger, HKS supercharger for that car. And it was in the Nissan booth. So it was like, I haven't seen him since then, but I was glad to know that he became the president. Yeah. And so all of this stuff, and like why the GTR wasn't here and now it is here is because of this 25-year-old rule. So Ryan, can you explain to me what the 25-year-old rule is about?
Sure. In the 1980s, U.S. car companies were getting real upset because it was very easy and you could save a lot of money by, instead of going to your LA BMW dealership and buying a car, ordering one or getting one straight from Germany and then importing it into the U.S. because the strength of the dollar was such that you would basically be paying half. And people were doing this in pretty large numbers, like by the tens of thousands. Mercedes was the company that was impacted the most, but it wasn't just them. It was Porsche, it was Ferrari, it was high-end stuff, where the higher retail price really made a difference on the discount you were getting. So U.S. dealerships specifically were lobbying for a rule that would prevent that from happening for years. They tried and tried and tried for about a decade and were really struggling to gain any ground. There just wasn't like political will to make this happen. Eventually, they finally succeeded, and in 1988, let me see if I get this right, International Vehicle Compliance Safety, I think I got that wrong, but the IVSCA was passed, and it basically said that if a vehicle is not originally sold in the U.S. market, you cannot bring it into the country for 25 years. There were some very rare exceptions to that. There are some ways to get around it, but that's essentially what the rule said, and it's still around now. Right. So and the way that they did it was because of safety regulations and emissions regulations. So basically, if it wasn't built specifically for the U.S., you can't bring it in until it turns 25. 8 months after that law was passed, the R32 Skyline GTR debuted. And so it was immediately right off the bat, like never available in the US. And frankly, Nissan didn't want to bring it here. They were not interested, I think for a lot of different reasons, but it wasn't specific to the US either. They really didn't have any interest in selling it anywhere. Yeah. Like overwhelming demand in Australia made them send about 100 vehicles there. And then when the R33 came out, they had some that went to the UK, and that was kind of it. Other than that, you were subject to whatever your nation's importing laws were.
Well, and those cars those countries had right-hand drive, so they didn't have to switch the steering wheel, right? So I think that's because, doing that, you have to re-engineer a lot of the stuff. It's a big investment. Yeah. That's probably why Nissan really wasn't one of the reasons why Nissan probably wasn't.
I think there were that certainly factored into it. But yeah, and it instantly made it forbidden fruit, as you said, but also just people didn't really know it existed. You had to be pretty deep in the car world to even know that it was.
Well, because they didn't market it anywhere else.
When I wrote my distance designer, no one knew what the Skyline GTR was. Right. No, you say R32, they would go, what are you talking about, right? A plane or something. But
Top Gear clips come on my Instagram feed all the time, and it's Jeremy Clarkson going, "Would you believe it's a Nissan?"
Yeah. Oh, with the about the R32.
The one I saw the other day was a 33.
Oh, 33.
Because it had just started to come to the UK. Yeah. But yeah, it just blew people's minds that Nissan, of all companies, was producing something like this. But of course, Japan at that time had pretty firmly established its ability to build really high performance cars. But kind of the rest of the world hadn't caught up to that idea yet.
But why do you think it was because they didn't want to put in the investment to convert it? I mean,
who knows?
What do you think?
Who knows what the?
Why did they not?
I think one of it's that. And plus, I don't think it's a car that made them that much money. Those niche cars. Some car companies, they lose money, right? Yeah. So it's not like they're going to sell a whole bunch of these, right? And we already have the Z32 here. The Z, which is pretty much their sports car. So, I think a lot of decisions went into it, but I think in the end they didn't see dollar signs.
I think that's right. They always planned for this to be a small batch car. Yeah. They planned the R32 full run to be 5,000 cars. And in the first run, they sold 20,000 in Japan alone. In the first year. Right. Sorry. So they thought they did about 4 or 5 times their expectation in the first year. And I think they were completely caught off guard by that. But national pride is a huge thing in Japan, obviously. That's been well documented, and Nissan, more than any of the others, embodies that. I mean, Nissan means Japanese manufacturing.
Yes.
They take that very seriously. And this car was supposed to be like the crown jewel for Japanese industry.
Yep.
It was for Japanese people
Yeah.
and enthusiasts. I don't think they ever really seriously considered taking it outside of the market at all, because what would be the point? It's such a small batch. Like, we're going to put everything we have into its development to make sure it's worthy of, being the symbol of national capability. But like, Americans won't want it, and who would want it? And I think the whole world has been completely caught off guard by it.
When did you first learn about the GTR?
Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty heavy into video games in the late 90s. And I really liked playing with the Mitsubishi 3000 GT. I thought that was the cool car, but I just kept losing to Skylines in it.
I'm going to tell you something. The 3000 GT VR4, that is a car before its time.
That's an awesome car.
It is a great car. It was a car before its time. So,
and I know it's
very heavy, but man, it had power. It had all the latest tech on it, four-wheel steering, four-wheel drive. I mean, that was a car before its time.
Yeah, and it gets blasted nowadays because they
shouldn't,
that's when
they
Mitsubishi
have
a lot of issues.
Was still Mitsubishi, though.
There's good reasons. Like you mentioned, they're heavy.
Former self. Yeah.
You mentioned they're heavy. They do break down a lot. But I always thought they were the coolest, and it was a same idea. Like, just put a ton of technology into a pretty, relatively pedestrian-looking car. But a few years ago, I found a club of pretty young guys out here in the LA area that all have them and all run around, and they're called
it's a great car.
It looks great. Club or something like that.
Yeah, it looks great.
But it was so cool to just see like a gang of them rolling around together, and so I'm glad there are people out there that are enjoying them. But anyway, that's how I found.
That was the golden age, because we had the Z33, Z32Z, we had the A80 Toyota Supra then, RX-7, and the Mitsubishi, right? 3000 GT. So
NSX.
That was NSX was 90, so it came out a little late. I think a little after that, but yeah, NSX. Yeah. I mean, that was a golden age, man. That was a golden age of Japanese sports car, even though they cost a lot at that time. So.
And then the Evos and the SDIs came out afterwards. That's
right. That
generation after that. But
yeah.
That's another golden age that they had. So with the 25-year-old rule, why was Motorex able to import GTRs to the U.S.?
Motorex is a miracle of a company. Like they never should have been able to do this. The rules in the law were they were designed to be almost impossible to go around, and Motorex just decided we're gonna do it anyway. But what they had to do essentially was bring a bunch of Skylines into the country and then basically manufacture replacement parts for certain areas of the car, and then crash test a number of them like over and over and over again. No other company was going to go to these lengths because at the time they weren't that valuable.
Yeah.
So even if they had done all that, they would have to destroy cars to be able to sell them. And then once you sold the cars, you weren't selling them for that much money. You weren't making that much profit.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of a fool's errand. But the people at Motorex were enthusiasts, and it's just one of those things with car guys. Like, it's like, well, I just need to do it.
Driven by passion.
Exactly.
Well, I got it. Let me add here that Taro was asking me, why is this GTR such a cult car? One of the reasons is Motorex. Motorex really added to the cult status of the car, not just because of them bringing the car here and introducing it a little bit to the American consumer, but because of you said this, should we say sneaky, the creative way that they brought the here, and then subsequently what happened to the company afterwards. That's all very, 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 very.
It's a great story.
Yeah, So I think that really added to the cult
I think, yeah.
the GTR2
Well,
Motorex.
and once it went down, it was like, well, it was just another thing to add to the legend of the GTR.
That's
like
right.
The GTR is just leaving all these people and companies in its wake.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like if you were only hearing those stories that were really spreading around the cardboard like that, you would think there's something cursed about this car, because all they do is get impounded or crushed, or the company's owners have to flee the country because they're facing jail time. So it just created like an incredible mystique and drama around the car.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing is, like, Motorex, in its actual company processes, never did anything wrong. The problem was the books, basically. They were the owner was getting caught up in a little over his head, and these were young guys at the time. They were in their late 20s, running this company, handling cars from overseas for people, handing them a lot of money, and they got caught up. You guys were there and know some of the people better than I do, so you can maybe tell me some stories off air. But yeah, the amazing thing is that the actual company part worked. Now, it couldn't have lasted that much longer because they just weren't bringing in enough volume, and they wouldn't have been able to generate that much revenue if they were just dealing with Skylines. At the time, the demand wasn't that huge, but they certainly, like you said, created the demand that we're seeing now, where, I mean, it's able to support multiple companies and multiple tuners and markets all over the country. I just went to the GTR Fest in Texas a few weeks ago, and there were not only companies, but owners that came from, obviously, California, Texas, Florida, but also the Dakotas and Idaho. And I met people from Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has its own group of like Skyline owners that they're all buddies, and they all hang out, and they all, like the guy that I was talking to could name every Skyline in the state of Oklahoma, and the same with the guy from Iowa. But these things really are like all over the country now. Yeah. And there's a network of shops and experts and importers who can support it. So it's turned into an industry of its own, really. A cult.
Yeah. When I first visited Motorex, this was probably 2000 or 2001 or something like that. We had started selling the Best Motoring International DVDs. Actually, there were still VHS videos at the time, embarrassingly enough. So we first started creating the DVDs, and we're like, okay, so who can help us distribute these things in the U.S., right? Because we were in Japan. We were in like Shibuya, Masa and Katsu, who are the founders of Built by Legends. So there's the three of us. And we just like, I don't know, just did a search or something. And then, you know, like, okay, these guys Motorex, they look like they speak in Japanese. They're selling GDRs in the U.S. Wow, that's kind of cool. Let's call them up and see if they'd be interested in carrying our DVDs, because, you know, it's sort of a cultural match, right? The people that are buying these cars are probably interested in watching our shows too. And the only way to get, I think you write it in the book a little bit, the only way to get any of this information was, you know, going to the Japanese supermarket and picking up a magazine, or going to Yaohan and renting these illegally like copied, like, you know, VHS videos.
No YouTube.
Yeah, no YouTube back then. So they were watching Video Option and Hot Version and Best Motoring, you know, just illegally copied ones. And what we wanted to do was like, well, let's just make some legit versions and sell them as DVDs, like sell DVDs. So, you know, we you know, booked a trip here, and I met Sam through Hero.
Yeah, I know, through Motorex. Yeah.
Like, you know, 25 years ago. But, you know, we just walked in, and there's like all of these like GTRs, R32, R33s, you know, just like sitting there, you know, like, and then Silvias too, right? Just like, and Evos. And then they also had all of these like, you know, G-Wagons and like Mercedes-Benz, like these cars that they were actually exporting. So they were sharing a building, right, with another company that was actually exporting cars to Japan.
Yeah,
so,
Hero started by exporting Grand Caravans, I think.
Yeah. But there was, it was like separated though. Hero and, you know, like Sean, they were, and Ken Takahashi, they were part of the, and it's all in the book, so I'm not, you know, divulging anything that I'm not supposed to. They were part of the importing group, right? And then there was just another company that shared the building with them. that was exporting, American cars to and trucks and stuff like that to Japan. So it was just like a hodgepodge of just like all these cars and like in and out, and like we'd come to the airport and one time Hiro would just like pick us up in a Bentley or whatever, and then the next time we come he's he wouldn't show up, but an hour later he'd show up in a something else. But it was just crazy. And then we met everyone from HKS and Greddy and Apex, like all those guys that appear in your book. I think we met them at Motorex at the time when we were just coming here for for the DVD business.
They were making their own videos at the time too,
and then
which
they
you can find
started
on YouTube.
Yeah,
That's a time capsule.
Yeah. JDM. What was that one? What was that one that they did? Hiro did his own DVD series with Toshi.
Yeah, I forget what they're called, but they're like an hour long each.
JDM
one.
Insider or something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was just their antics, but yeah. So what are you mentioned? Like, okay, so there's a 25-year rule, and then there's also ways to bring in the GTR. Show and display, right? So that's like a special sort of a loophole to bring in less than 25-year-old cars to the U.S. How does that work? Right.
So there's a few different sets of rules around it. The first is that you can't drive it very much. Mm-hmm. So there's a cap of something like 2,000 or 2,500 miles per year. Something like that. The second is, in the first place, it has to be a very rare, significant vehicle. So standard R34 GTRs wouldn't apply. It would have to be a V-Spec 2 or an M-Spec NER or something like that. And then you could also, we need an
Sean
importing. We need Sean. But there is something about if it's for a museum or it's for a collection of some kind and it's to be brought around and appreciated, then
show and display, basically. Yeah.
Then that's another part of it too. But you cannot bring it in under that guise and then daily drive it. You're gonna get it impounded real quick.
But if it passes 25 years, then you can switch it over, right?
Once it's 25 years old by the month of its production date, then it can be legally brought in. There's still a mountain of paperwork that you have to go through, and we're in California, so there's all different types of emissions hurdles. So there will always be a mountain of paperwork associated with every Skyline GTR that you see in the U.S., but it can be done.
How long did it take for you to do all the research for this book?
The research was accelerated. I would say 9 or 10 months of really going at it every day, and then 4 or 5 months of writing, and then it was out. But I wanted it out quickly. I wanted it out before the R34s started to be legalized.
I see.
And we got it out a few months before that, and we're able to launch at SEMA. And I was pleased with that. But yeah, I intentionally left some things on the table because I was like, oh, well, that could be for another day, or that's a story I don't really have the time to dive into and figure out all the thorns in there.
Yeah. Sam, so which one is your favorite GTR? The 32 to 35?
I think I'm partial to the 34.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a 34 guy, I think. I like 32. 33 is probably my least favorite.
It's probably for a lot of people.
Really? The 33 has its charms too, but I think I'm a 34 guy. Yeah.
The 33 is the Wangan highway racer.
33 is the kind of like the muscle. It's almost like a muscle car, Japanese muscle car. Yeah. 32 and 34, I think, are a little more graceful, So.
Yeah. So there's a character that appears in the book, and you're mentioning Wangan, is our friend Tamura-san. So how was it like meeting him in Japan?
Great. We had met twice in the U.S. before that, so we had a relationship, which was nice. But he's obviously the head of the GTR program and the Z program as well, for Nissan in Japan. And
he was. He's not anymore.
Correct.
He was,
but to meet with him in Japan and get to ride in his personal 32, just really tough to put into words. I realize what a significant moment that is to people who have lived and breathed JDM for decades now. And kind of, I was very wary of like just parachuting in and inserting myself into something that a lot of people have dedicated their lives to. But I tried to treat stuff like that with like the appropriate reverence. And he was so generous in not only giving me time and like special moments like his personal R32, which is like world famous, but really diving into like some pretty personal stories of his upbringing and his motivations and what drives him now. And that's what I was most grateful for, is like really trying to understand the background on him as a person and why he cares so much and why he's pushed so hard to, be a part of this community and help it grow and help foster it. And that's rare. Like there's not a lot of car executives that would spend that time to like focus on the people, but it aligned with like the reasons that I do this, which is provide value to people and really focus on the humanity in a story and the people behind the story. I wanted the book to be about people who are connected by a car. I didn't want it to be a straight history of a car or a bunch of specs.
Yeah.
Like I wanted it to be about people who all found each other through a car, but it should be character driven, and I think most car stories should be like that.
Yeah.
Real quick, I think a lot of times it gets kind of lost through the gaps here. Is to remember a guy named, and he's still alive, Mr. Mizuno.
Oh yeah,
Kazutoshi Mizuno. He is the one who actually developed the first GTR that we got, the R35. Tamura-san took over after Mizuno. Mizuno's the one who got the assignment from Carlos Ghosn and Carlos Tavares, who was recently of Stellantis fame. But I think a lot of people tend to forget him and his test driver Suzuki-san, who's a race driver, about the R35. He should be celebrated too, I think so. And I hear he's got a book coming out, like a very, very expensive, very, very, very exclusive book on his experiences, his take on the R35, who he is the original chief engineer of, chief product specialist.
$2,000 carbon fiber cover book on the technology. Have you heard about this book?
Yeah.
You know
it looks
about
incredible.
Yeah.
When is it coming? When is it out here? Is it already available somewhere?
I don't think so.
No,
I think
okay.
They're still taking orders now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just shout out to Mr. Mizuno too,
Yeah.
because he seems to be kind of gets forgotten.
Well, he was the first chief product officer and chief developer put together into one position.
It's probably chief product specialist and chief engineer.
Right. Yeah, for the R35.
Right.
Yeah, and he was given all authority from going to build the car.
Yeah, I mean, I met them in Germany once where they're testing a mule still there, and talked to him, Mr. Nagai, who was his right hand man. So, yeah, I mean, I remember when they were still developing this car.
What was that like before? Were you driving or riding along?
No. I wasn't part of it, but we met somewhere, and they had Porsche 911 Turbo there. Some competitor cars, and they're just testing against the other cars. So yeah, it was interesting.
Suzuki-san was driving, right?
They were all there, him and a bunch of engineers. Yeah, not just.
Were you able to get a sense at that time?
They wouldn't let me drive it then. No, yeah, but yeah.
Did you get a sense that this car could be a complete game changer? Because that's what ended up happening.
Well, as soon as they said the GTR is coming out in America, I thought it was a game changer right there. So I knew they weren't going to make a bad car. So I go, okay, this will be pretty interesting. This will be a pretty cool car.
And to your point, the R35, I think it's probably getting overlooked now, like as it's sunsetting and was out for 17 years.
That's another thing. It stayed out there pretty much looking exactly the same as it came out many, many years ago. Not really, So,
but it's a great point to bring up. Like, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that when that thing came out in 07 or 08 or whatever it was, like, it was completely unprecedented, the bang for the buck that you got.
Well, and then, hats off to Carlos Ghosn too. He's the one who made the decision he was the president, CEO of Nissan then, to bring the car
back
over.
the Z too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And just save Nissan from the brink.
Yeah. He did then. He did.
Truly a miracle.
Well, now Nissan's part of Honda.
Now Nissan's part of Honda. Exactly.
So what are you going to do?
So what do you guys think about that? A little bit, it's current.
Let me mention something here. When you look at the U.S., let's say traditionally we've had like the big three, right? 3 car companies, right? Big country, 3 car companies.
Yep.
Germany has a lot too. They have Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, and Volkswagen, which are the same. What am I missing there? Mercedes, BMW. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So that's 5. Okay, that's a lot, right? France, maybe 2, right? Citroën, Renault. They might have
Renault, Citroën, Peugeot.
Right. Italy, if you don't count the really super exotics like Ferrari, Lamborghini, you got pretty much Fiat. Japan at the time had Nissan, Toyota, Subaru, Mitsubishi, Suzuki. What am I missing here? Mazda. We're talking a lot of car companies for one little country like that. Yeah. So, at some point, I thought there was going to be a tipping point where some of these car companies. I mean, we had even Daihatsu here, but Toyota, kind of took control of Daihatsu.
Consolidation.
But, so slowly, right? Subaru's become part of Toyota.
Right.
Now Nissan and Honda and Mitsubishi, right, are kind of together. So, I don't think that the way that was set up could have lasted, right? So. Just like in the old days when Nissan and Prince came together, I knew something like this was going to happen. So Nissan, they did not have much wind in their sails the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't see too many Zs out there today. When a new Z came out, dude, I used to see them like, every 5 miles, a new Z. I haven't seen the new Z that much here, You turn on the TV, you don't see that many commercials of, Nissans and Infinitis as much as you do from Toyotas, right? So
and their model lineup has
been stagnant
in flux,
a bit, yeah,
for sure.
So I think it was kind of inevitable.
Yeah,
it's also a good example of like just the complicated nature of a modern day automaker. Like, there's not any one reason that Nissan has had the trouble that it's had. It's like when you're talking about global economies of scale. It's a compounding of decisions that have been made over the last 10 years or more that just kind of all came together at the same time. But it's not, in my opinion, it's not the success or failure of one particular model or initiative or the EV thing. Like, it's
the EV thing is huge.
Many things.
EV
It is
huge.
massive.
China with a BYD,
massive part of it.
If those guys brought that car here without the huge tariff, whatever taxes, it'd be curtains for a lot of car companies here. I mean, those. So it's the Chinese. I think EV market has changed the landscape. And in Red Mist, there's a Chinese. I was kind of looking into the crystal ball. A very naughty Chinese car company in that one. So, but I mean, it was kind of inevitable. I mean, and I don't know what the future holds for the Chinese car companies, but they are here and they're going to keep growing.
Yeah.
Did you see any of the launches from CES, Ryan?
Not much.
No? Yeah, Honda
the Honda
released,
one.
The
Zero, or was it Zero?
It's an SUV.
Both.
Right?
They had both. Yeah.
Electric cars, obviously.
But I did see Sony is making a push with whatever their
Sony
car is.
and Honda too.
Yeah,
right?
That Sony Honda project. Yeah.
So it'll be built by Honda, but marketed as a Sony.
It has a new brand. It's called Afila.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
So I think that was the thing that I saw the most, but I don't know what else everyone's been up to.
Yeah. So what are your interests, like, besides GTRs? Like, do you still write as a journalist? Are you focusing on your books? What are you up to?
Publisher now.
Yeah. You're publishing other writers' books too, but what's going on in your world?
Focusing on continuing to learn the publishing industry and build out a framework that can be sustainable. I think there is tons of untapped talent out there for automotive writers, photographers, creators of all kinds to really try their hand at doing a book. I think there's still a lot of prestige out there to being able to say that I wrote a book or I put a book out. And so we're having a lot of those conversations right now. Like, okay, how...
Larry, you have a new book coming out with Larry Chen.
We have a new book with Larry Chen we just announced, which we're very, very excited about. And that's a great example of like a complete no-brainer to me. And I don't know why, a company before me didn't see that as something that they should really make a priority. But when he and I started to talk about it, I was like, of course. Yeah. Like, it's such an easy decision to me. And I think there's lots of other people out there who would be interested and would be a similarly easy call. So
when is this book coming out?
I want to check that out.
When is Larry's book coming out?
Larry's book, we're aiming for midsummer. So we're deep into design right now. And frankly, just trying to harness the sheer amount of images that he has over the last 20 years. But we are benchmarking 400 pages, 2,000 images over 20 years of his career. And he's been there for so many like crucially important moments in car culture over that time. And so it's really just trying to, we've got it narrowed down, but now it's like, okay, how do we build a narrative around this and really tell his personal story and like display those images with the gravity that they deserve. Because I think a big core value for Carrara Media as a company is giving modern enthusiasts the same respect and recognition that like previous generations of car enthusiasts have gotten for their eras, for the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. Like we haven't really had that for the 2000s era, the 2010s and beyond. But Larry's a perfect way to do that because he's been there for all of the rise of Hoonigan and a lot of their amazing stuff, and he's documented Baja and Pikes Peak and the rise of Formula Drift, which could be its own book. So it's really important to me that young enthusiasts see their interests reflected in books on the bookshelf.
And where are your books available?
Right now, the best place to find it is our website, which is carrarabooks.com. But everything eventually makes its way to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the traditional marketplaces too.
Cool. Sam, what's next after? Yeah, I mean, you've
Trilogy is done.
When are you?
Trilogy is
when
done.
am I going to star in one of your stories?
You're already starring in it. There's a guy named Taro in that book, and he doesn't die. So you should be happy.
So there are a lot of characters in here that what's his name? Cosworth.
Those
Williams.
are just Easter eggs.
Those are Easter eggs for like car enthusiasts. But there are a lot of dudes in here like Taro and
any resemblance to anyone actual, whether whatever, it's purely coincidental. Okay, purely coincidental.
I've met multiple people who have walked up to me and said, I'm in Sam's book, and I said, well,
it's purely coincidental.
Okay, it's purely coincidental. It's not me.
Whether alive or dead, it's purely coincidental.
The Taro with the GT Channel T-shirt is not me, right?
It's purely coincidental. Purely coincidental.
Oh man! So so you're done with the trilogy?
I'm done with the trilogy. I think I took these action thrillers, as far as I could go with the car theme. The last one probably has the least in it, even though it's got a pretty heavy one. But yeah, I think because these aren't Fast and Furious type of stories. These aren't like, we got something really fast and we're going to, I live my life quarter mile at a time or something. No, it's nothing that corny. These are pretty realistic car companies, realistic stories. They're a little more serious. And, in the Prototype and especially in Keys to the Empire, there's a very deep science element to it, I don't know if you remember, but right? So it's not just about cars, even though the main kind of theme, the world it's in is, the car industry is heavily featured in it from all of my experiences, but they are, real thrillers, and there's you're asking Ryan how much research he put into I don't know, maybe more. I don't know how much research. There's a lot of research that went into these books.
I wasn't researching DNA strands.
I had to, genome guys, pilots, actually a CIA, ex-CIA operative, which I got a lot of information on. So a lot of research went into this. So, I hope, just, if you're out there and you're going on a trip and you need something to read, I'd appreciate it if you give it a shot. I think you'd enjoy it.
And we've got a lot of fun ideas to like continue marketing the trilogy into 2025 now, and
cool.
Get Sam out to some cool events and get the book in front of people at car events.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
it'd be great to get like a series out of this, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you're the agent.
They should be. They should be, right?
I think they make good. I think they would make pretty fun to watch. If done right.
I think
I'd watch it.
Yeah. and then Cult of GTR.
This is a documentary.
That'd be a great documentary.
Yeah, this is a documentary.
That'd be the new Tiger King.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
We get Sean Morris dressed up with the wig and everything.
He'd love that.
Yeah, he would love that.
Yeah. But well, thanks for coming in, guys. It's been really fun to read the books. I've read all 4 of these books.
Wow, thank you.
And this one I really loved when I first picked it up, and I think I called you right away and said, "Man,
won an award."
This one won an award. But they're all award worthy. But I enjoyed every single part of these books, and I just love not just the Easter eggs and the characters and the names Nigel McKean. Shout out to James McKean. And Chop Suey, restaurant it comes
downtown.
out. In downtown. But it's just kind of going down memory lane, and just knowing you guys personally probably helped me understand and enjoy the books a little bit more. But I think they're great books this one to learn about the GTR. And if you're a JDM guy, and if you're, a GTR guy, and this is just like, you got to read this, you got to know all this stuff, right? And then if you're a Sam guy and a fan of
spies and thrillers and
Jason Bourne and Top Gear, right? You gotta,
you got Red Mist, and they're going to try to blow up the LA Auto Show.
Assassins, my favorite part.
Assassins,
right? So, where can folks? You said it, CarraraMedia.com. Is that the website where they can find all the books and purchase one?
Yeah, CarraraBooks.com, and same on social media too.
And maybe a little coupon code Racer something.
We can work it out
to get a few percent off for the Racer podcast people.
Yeah, we can work it out.
Okay,
there you go.
Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe we do that.
Why don't we do that? You're the man. Sorry, I put you on the spot.
let me check with my boss, which is me. I'll run it by him.
Yeah, we can put a little coupon code right here.
After we go out there, he goes, Sam, no, why the hell?
Cut this part out. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we can do, and any help we can do to promote the books.
Just think of a coupon code, right? A code. Well, say it on the air, and then you could decide what the percentage is, and that'll be like their surprise. See how much they get off.
We could put it in posts too, Sam. We could just put it up here, right here.
Oh, you could.
This is a coupon code.
Oh, this
here.
isn't live.
He just likes pressing me.
Yeah. This is how it works, man. This is how marketing works.
This is how we promote the book. All right. Well,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Pleasure, man.
Yeah. Any last words, Sam?
No, I just hope they pick it up, give it a chance, because I think once you read it, all 4 books here, it'll be hard to put down. It's not one of those where where you put it down and you can't pick it back up kind of thing. You pick it up, you can't put it back down.
Yeah. Ryan?
I think everything that we try to do at Carrara, I want to make sure that every single project that comes out has something that's only we could do, that is a unique twist to us, and that even if someone else was going to produce the exact same kind of book, let's make sure ours goes a little bit further or has a little bit something different. And what I loved about working with Sam was they are very distinctly him, and it's no one else could have done those books that way, and that's
I don't think
one of the
anyone
reasons
else
I'm so
really
proud
could
of
have.
it.
I don't really think I can't think of anyone else who could have written something like these books, huh?
No, unless they've been kidnapped
With
in
the-
Mali.
Yeah, that. And,
yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in, guys.
all right, thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Creative Drive, where we offer listeners a candid look into the minds of automotive creators and their journeys. The Creative Drive is available on all podcast platforms, and we have more awesome guests lined up for you guys, so please subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. If you're interested in partnering with us, or if you have any feedback, please email us at podcast@racer.com or DM us in our Instagram. The Creative Drive is produced by Molly Binks from Racer Studio, directed by TJ Keon, creative director George Tamayo, and edited by Andrew Snyder. We've got New Nick, OG Nick, and Morgan on the socials. I'm your host, Taro Koki. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time.